while some have described Donald Trump's MAGA base as being like a cult, how easy is it for supporters to be critical of their leader? Rich Logis is a former Make America Great Again activist who became disillusioned, left, and founded a movement called Leaving MAGA. Well, we spoke to him earlier, and he told me, first of all, why he left initially.
So I like to paraphrase the American writer Ernest Hemingway and say that my epiphany happened gradually and then suddenly all at once. There were a variety of reasons that eventually led me to leave MAGA. There was the president's mismanagement of COVID. There were the stolen election lies, January 6th. Also, my governor here in Florida, Ron DeSantis, in the summer of 2021, began platforming anti-vaxxers at his pressers. And the final straw for me was May 24th, 2022, which was the Uvalde, Texas school shooting. And it was shortly after Uvalde when I quietly left MAGA. But I decided that I wanted to go public because I had always been so unapologetically public in my support for Trump. I felt I needed to reciprocate and do the same in renouncing Trump and the MAGA movement. And it was on August 30th of 2022 when I wrote a mea culpa, and I said in that article that I was sorry for supporting Trump and MAGA, that I made a mistake, and I wanted to apologize to anyone I may have hurt with my words and my deeds. And I call that day my Leaving MAGAversary. And the truth is, I never thought anyone would care. But it turned out people did care. They wanted to hear my story. And from all of that was birthed our organization last year, Leaving MAGA.
So you've watched, really, from knowing this group of people quite intimately for the last few years as Donald Trump gets re-elected again, and then how the row over the supposed Epstein files is starting to tear inside the Republicans. It's sort of started to tear apart the MAGA movement. What's happening?
So I think that there is a burgeoning cognitive dissonance that's pervasive across MAGA. And I think begotten from that cognitive dissonance is a lot of confusion and a lot of doubts. And there's a question about this Epstein story that I would ask respectfully that MAGA Americans think about, which is that if Donald Trump is lying about this Epstein list, then what else is it that he might be lying about? I think most people in MAGA, just like most Americans, Rosie, I believe that they do care about the safety and security of children. And it was promised that it would be revealed who may have aided and abetted Jeffrey Epstein. And now we're told that there's nothing to see. But for many, many months, the president, the vice president, MAGA influencers said that there was, in fact, a list. And now they're saying that there isn't. So they were either lying then or they're lying right now. And I think people in MAGA are starting to question their belief system and are starting to wonder if Trump is really as honest as they may have believed that he was, and if this is the movement that they thought that they were really supporting.
Why might this story be the one? We know that Donald Trump has said many contradictory things in the past. Why might it be this specific story that unpicks the support?
Well, you know, Jeffrey Epstein was a known sex trafficker, and I don't think it's unreasonable for Americans of all differing political beliefs to want to know who may have been directly associated with him, who may have actually participated in this sex trafficking. And I think that for those in MAGA, they want to know who may have been involved in this the way I believe that most Americans want to know. And the fact that the president and his surrogates had for so long talked about there being a list and then only to fail to deliver on that that's a broken promise that I think a lot of people in MAGA are starting to use to question their own support for him and their allegiance to him.
Yeah, there is going to be a sort of another dispatch of documents, but, Pam Bondi says no client list exists in the way that potentially people were led to believe. I wonder how you think the president is going to try and handle this, because try as he might, he's finding it very difficult to change the conversation. Katie Balls, our Washington correspondent, spoke to one she described as exasperated Republican to say he'll have to invade Greenland next. I mean, how might, do you think, Donald Trump try to move on from this or distract the conversation elsewhere?
Well, I think the president and his advisors have figured out that this story is not going away. He wishes that it would, but it isn't. And I think that the president knows that there are cracks forming in the base. And I think that some of those cracks have the potential, albeit slowly, to lead to something of an exodus of MAGA supporters. And so I think that he's using these lawsuits against Fox, and there will be undoubtedly other actions that he'll take to try to distract from this. But this story's not going away, Rosie. Mm-hmm. And that's actually, if you think about in our current media environment, stories don't tend to hang around for a long time, but this one is. And this one is hanging around because of the severity of what Jeffrey Epstein did, what we know kinds of acts that he engaged in. So I know the president wishes that this would go away, but the MAGA base is not going to let it go away. And I do think there's a reckoning coming, and I'm not sure the president knows exactly how to handle that. He can say that anyone who's demanding this list are either former supporters or fake MAGA supporters, but the fact is there are real MAGA supporters who are holding him to account right now and expect him to keep his word and release this list. The fact that he isn't raises questions about what's actually in these documents and what might incriminate the president in them.
That's Rich Logis, a former MAGA activist who left the movement on sort of the repercussions within the Republican Party as that latest little bit more of information is going to be released. But as we heard from Donald Trump, he has said nothing will be good enough for the troublemakers and the radical left lunatics making the request.
There's certainly lots of requests there.